here I was, married man, wife and 4 kids, and we arrived in Ashburton, and we rented a house in George Street in Tynwald. And my wife went over to the grocer's shop to open an account, because in those days you opened an account with a local grocer, and that's the way it was. And the grocer's name was George Smith, I think that was his name. And he said to Margaret, "What's your husband's name?" And she said, "Ron Bishop." And he said, "Oh, I didn't know Loopy was married." Now, apparently there was another Ron Bishop in Ashburton, 2 Ron Bishops, and this guy was called Loopy. He's the sort of guy that go to a party and he'd tip up the supper table, you know. Did Loopy things. He was a good spud picker, could pick up spuds, lots of spuds. But he had half a dozen of beer at the end of every row, keep him going. And one day, there was a notice in the paper saying that Ron Bishop had urinated in an undertaker's doorway. And I thought, holy Moses, what am I going to do? So I went to my accountant and I said, "Listen, this Ron Bishop bloke, he's in the court news. What'll I do?" And he said, "Oh, put a disclaimer in the paper." So I put a disclaimer in the paper and I said, "I'm Ronald Edward Bishop, and I'm not Ronald Francis Bishop that was in the court news." So the next day we went into the Somerset Hotel in Ashburton, and here's Loopy. He yells out across the bar, "Hello, Ron Bishop, I saw your name in the paper." God, he was a hard case. But anyway, we bought a house in Grove Street in Tynwald, a split level house. We bought a very good house in a poorer area. Anyway, we had a great time there. We had teenagers. All our kids were brought up there, and we had teenage parties. We believed in mixing with the kids, you know, as teenagers. They always came round. We had a pool table, and they would come round to our place and play pool. We had a money jar, and I said to them, "Now, when we fill the money jar at the end of the season, we'll have a party. We'll buy some beer and have a party," which we did. Margaret got a job in the Hotel Ashburton. She used to work there at night shift. I was a good shearer. Because I'd been shearing in gangs, I was faster than many of the people in Ashburton, many of the shearers in Ashburton. I shot 300 one day in Mount Somers, which hadn't been heard of before. And in the off-season, I went to Wanaka. A fellow by the name of Gordy McLeod was a shearing contractor, and I went down there and worked for him. I worked with a bloke called Harry Hughes, a Maori fellow, bloody good bloke. We got on well. Him and I went whitebaiting on the west coast once, to catch some whitebait, and we bought all the eggs and all the stuff to cook them in, and finished up rain. Jesus, it did rain. We got a wet backside, but never got any whitebait. Had to finish up buying whitebait. Ashburton was a good place for a shearer because you're home every night. You didn't go away and stay away. You're home every night. A married man, it suited married men. They had a shearers' union, a very good shearers' union. They had shearers' picnics. You know, we always used to have shearers' picnics, and it was good. They nominated me as the shearers' union rep. They had a meeting once, and they nominated me as the shearers' rep. And it was they met with the Federated Farmers, because the Federated Farmers was governing the price of shearing as well. So anyway, they agreed at the meeting. The shearers agreed that they would put the price up from $16 a hundred to $18 a hundred. And I said, you blokes, when you go out of here tomorrow, you start shearing for $18, not $16. And of course, it was in the paper. Federated Farmers told not to pay the $18. And I was shearing for a bloke called Bill Skilling at the time. And we were shearing at a place called Tiparita. And George Hobson was the cocky. And he rang me up and he said, "Ron, we're not paying the $18 over here because we're over the other side of the river. We're over the other side of the Ashburton River. So you have to work for the old price. And I said, George, I can't do that. I'm the union rep. I've got to represent the men. And I can't go cutting the price. Well, I went out to get my paper in the morning, and Eddie Ward was a shearer next door. Him and his George, him and his brother George, shore together. And they saw me getting the paper. And they said, "What are you doing, Ron?" They come back. I said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm on strike because you buggers are out cutting the price, and I can't get the price, and I can't go to work." Well, they come back and they got me, and they picked me up because they were in a 3-stand shed, and there was only 2 of them. So we shored together. They shared the sheep with me, and that was a great thing they did. Anyway, I was getting a bit brassed off with shearing. Bill Skilling, he became the union man, the bloke I was shore with, and so I worked for a guy called John Keane. Him and I had a run. He had about 8 kids. Good bloke though. But I was getting a bit sick of shearing, and I remembered what my mother had said. She said, "Ronnie, you'll never ever make any money using your brawn. You have to push a pen, wear a collar and tie." So I took Mum's advice. I said, "Righto, Mum, I'm going to give up before I'm 30. So before I was 30, a few days before I was 30, I threw my handpiece down the porthole. I said to the farmer, we were shearing up in Methven, and I said to the farmer, I said, 'This is the last sheep I'll ever shear.' And I picked my handpiece up and I threw it down the porthole, and I said, 'That's it, I'll never shear another sheep.' I've sheared the odd few, but I've never done it for a living." So that's the end of that decade. 1971 it was. So I'm going home to have lunch now, and then we'll come back and we'll start on my 4th decade, which is 1971 to 81. Okay?